The August 28, 2018 meeting of the Ways and Means Committee will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ansello.
Here.
Mr. Baroth.
Here.
Mrs. Conley.
Here.
Chairman Delahanty.
Here.
Mrs. Draw is excused. Mr. Felder.
Here.
Mr. Hebert.
Here.
Ms. Cayley. Mr. Marinetti.
Here.
Mr. Morelli is excused. Mr. Rocco.
Here.
President Carbone.
Okay. Will Legislator Connolly please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Are there any speakers signed up for the public forum?
There is not.
Okay. Is there anyone here who would like to address the committee at this time? Okay. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. You have the minutes from the July 23rd, 2018 meeting before you. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified of any changes by the end of the day. At this time, we will have a presentation of the 2017 Monroe County Audit by Megan Anderson, Audit Manager at Bonadio & Company, LLP. Legislators, on your tablets, you will notice a letter from Bonadio & Company to the County Legislature regarding the audit. Ms. Anderson.
Good evening. First of all, I want to thank the county for allowing us to be your external auditors. Bonadio is a local firm. We originated in Monroe County, and we still have our offices, our headquarters in Monroe County. So we're thrilled to be part of the process for our home county. So thank you for that. And second, I'd like to thank management of the county, specifically the finance department, Bob, Jennifer, and Chris. We ask a lot of them during this time frame on top of their normal day-to-day duties. So thank you very much. So as mentioned, there was a letter provided to you electronically. This is a communications letter that we're required to report to governance. And basically what it does is it gives you an overview of how the audit went and items we feel that governance should be aware of as they read the financial document. So I'm planning to go through this letter with you. So first off, the first part of the letter states that you hired us to perform a financial statement audit for the county for December 31st, and that's what we did. We provided you an opinion on each opinion unit of the county. And during the audit, we provided you an unmodified opinion. There's no different levels of unmodified opinion. There's just unmodified, and that's the highest level of assurance we can give you. So that's a good thing. That's what everybody's looking for when they get your financial statements. Second, under significant audit findings, these are the items that you should be aware of as you read through the financial statement document. They might not be specifically stated in the financial statement document, so that's why I would like to go through them with you. First, the management of the county is responsible for adopting their own accounting policies, and they disclose those in the financial statement document under footnote number 1. And I want to point out to you that this is the first year in a while that there hasn't been a new complicated accounting policy to implement. So there were no new accounting policies implemented this year, but there are definitely some complicated GASBs coming down the pipeline. Next, accounting estimates. There are some significant numbers in that financial document that are estimated numbers. And during the audit process, we did go through those significant estimates to ensure the inputs used were reasonable. So I just want to briefly describe some of those with you. So that first bulleted item on page 1, there is an other post-employment benefits liability recorded in the financial statements. And this is an actuarially determined number. So as part of the audit, we looked at some of those assumptions and those key factors, including the census data that the county sent and the assumptions the actuary used, so mortality tables, discount rate, medical trends, just to ensure that it was reasonable. But you should know it's an estimate, and should you have gone out to a different actuary, you may have had a different number. So that's just something to note. Moving on to page 2, the second significant estimate was an allowance for uncollectible accounts. So at the end of the year, there were amounts owed to the county that were outstanding, and as part of the financial statement close process, they come up with a calculation to determine what amounts may be deemed uncollectible. And we just looked at that calculation and that trend analysis that they used for reasonableness, and we didn't note any issues. Moving on to the third bullet, depreciation expense. You have some long-term assets that you're recognizing the expense over the useful life of the asset. We looked at the inputs and the method used to depreciate, the useful lives and the straight line method. We sampled those and they appeared reasonable to us. And the last estimate that I wanted to point out to you, this is the big one, the net pension liability, net pension asset. This was implemented a couple years ago. It relates to the employee retirement system. You have no control over this number and no option over this number. It's something that New York State and GASB required, and it's your portion of the either overfunded or underfunded status of the retirement system. So now the state is sharing that with you. And we looked at the actuarial assumptions that KPMG used in that for reasonableness. Okay, so moving down page 2, in addition to significant estimates, I also want to point out when you're going through the financial statements, there's 2 notes that are very significant, and they surround some of those estimated numbers. Your other post-employment benefits and your net pension liability. Those numbers may seem mysterious with all the actuarial determinations. Those footnote disclosures will describe to you all the inputs that they did use and how they got to that, and the sensitivity of some of those assumptions and how 1 percentage point could swing a liability to an asset or the other way around. So I wanted to point out those 2 footnote disclosures for you to read to better solidify your understanding of those numbers. Moving down the page, difficulties encountered in performing the audit. I'm pleased to say that we didn't have any difficulties in completing the audit. We came out in early December to get a preliminary understanding of how things went at the county. We were in contact January through February through some issues, and then we came out in April, and we were able, with the assistance of the finance department, to issue our audit opinion dated May 31st. In time to meet the June 1st deadline. Corrected and uncorrected misstatements. During our audit, if we found an adjustment that needed to be made to the numbers so they were correctly stated in a material sense, we would need to disclose those to you. We had no such instances this year, which is a huge compliment to the finance department. Disagreements with management. We're required to disclose to you if there was an accounting policy or a transaction where we didn't see eye to eye with the finance department. We would have to disclose that to you, but there were no such instances this year. Okay. Moving on to the last page, under management representations. In order to give and sign our audit opinion, we were provided a letter from the county taking responsibility for certain legal matters and financial matters, and that was dated May 31st. There are no significant changes year over year, but we were provided that letter. Management consultations with other independent accountants. If such an instance were to occur, if the finance department reached out to another accounting firm to get a second opinion, under auditing standards, that firm's required to reach out to us as well to make sure they have all the relevant facts before making a decision. To our knowledge, that didn't happen, but if it did, we would have been required to disclose that to you. Lastly, in this letter, other audit findings or issues. Throughout the year, the county may reach out to us concerning certain transactions or implementations of accounting policies. We encourage that. We like to have that communication throughout the year. I just want to note to you our responses to those were not a condition of our retention as the auditors. The next paragraph under other matters, this just calls out the supplementary schedules in the financial statements. There's no changing to the wording this year, so I'm not going to go through that section. And the last part of this letter, restriction on use. This letter is really just intended for the county legislature and management, and it's not a letter that's intended to be used by any other source. So I just wanted to point that out to you. So that's an overview of the audit, and I do want to note we are in the process of completing the single audit of the federal funds and the New York State DOT audit. We plan to issue those in time for the 9/30 deadline.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. I think at this time, what we're going to do is we're going to ask questions, and they'll go through the chair, and then we'll address them where they need to go. So I believe I saw Legislator Rocca. If you'd like to lead us off.
Thank you. Thank you for your update.
Through the chair.
Through the chair, to the auditor, can you give us a brief description of your auditing process?
Sure. So we start the audit process formally in late fall, early December. And what we do is we come on site in the county and we visit with different department heads. We go through what are your significant transaction cycles, your revenue streams, what controls do you have over them, and walk through certain transactions and assess the risk at each department and transaction level. Based on the results of that risk assessment, we will build a substantive test of account balances. And then when we come out after year end, after the books have closed, we're provided trial balances and financial statements from the finance department, and we substantively test those balances, whether it be looking at them analytically, predictively using certain inputs and historical trends, or we'll just vouch something for support.
Again, through the chair.
Enough mouth. Through the chair to the auditor, can you briefly describe the working relationship between your team and the county administration?
Yeah.
Through the chair.
Oh, through the chair. The nice thing about our relationship with Monroe County is it doesn't just happen twice a year during our preliminary procedures and during the 4 weeks we're here for the audit. They do reach out to us throughout the year on implementing new accounting policies and certain difficult transactions that they may need guidance on, and they always have the research done and calculations done before we come out, so we're able to help them through that. And the turnaround for the audit has always been very quick. We come out in April and we issue by the end of May.
Okay. And through the chair, you answered my second part. What, is the county finance team responsive? And it sounds like that you mentioned that they're very responsive to your needs. On page 2 of your letter, it states that the introductory and statistical sections have not been subject to the auditing. Then why are they included?
Through the chair, they're a required portion of the financial document. So they're required to be included in that document, but we're not required to audit them.
Okay.
So we just wanted to make a note to you that the numbers have not been audited by us.
Okay, thank you.
Legislator Hebert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the administration. The definition of custodial account is provided on page 48 of the report. Can you expand on the definition of custodial accounts and whether Monroe Community Hospital is the only entity that holds this type of account?
Through the chair, custodial accounts are assets. They're mainly cash that's held by the county for exclusive benefit of the beneficiary. And yes, MCH is the county's only entity which holds custodial accounts.
Okay. Through the chair again, on page 50, It displays information pertaining to the county's accounts receivable. What are accounts receivable, and how do they affect the county's net position?
Through the chair, accounts receivables are any monies that are due to the county but haven't been received as of the time of the report. Most commonly, accounts receivable arise because we provided some kind of service resulting in revenue to the county. Accounts receivables are reported as assets on financial statements, and I think I'm good. Sorry. So actually, accounts receivable are assets. Assets minus liabilities equals fund balance. So at the simplest terms, assets minus liabilities equal fund balance.
Okay, thank you. And through the chair, what's the difference between bond anticipation notes and revenue anticipation notes? They're both mentioned, I think, on page 57.
Mr. Chairman, the county issues bond anticipation notes generally twice a year, June and December, and that's basically for capital projects in which this legislature has authorized bond financing. I think I've mentioned in prior meetings, we don't issue bonds right away. The first act is issuing a short-term note that allows us to advance cash to get the capital project moving, and any aid from the state or federal governments or any private aid can come in, and we use that to repay the bond anticipation note. Revenue anticipation notes are a little different, Mr. Chairman. They're issued in anticipation of the receipt of revenues, very specific revenues. In Monroe County, our RANs are tied to delays in state payments related to social services and Monroe Community Hospital. They are short-term borrowings. I will note for this committee and anyone else listening, Monroe County, folks certainly don't like or frown upon short-term borrowings. I always say when I worked in the private sector, every company out there has some access to working capital lines of credit. Those are short-term borrowings. In New York State, amongst counties, we probably issue our revenue anticipation notes for the shortest duration, about 5 or 5.5 months.
Thank you. Once again, through the chairman to the administration, page 66 provides a timetable of the county's capital lease agreements. 3 questions. 1, are all of the county leases included on this page?
Through the chair, no, only leases that meet the definition of capital leases are recorded on this page. So this footnote excludes operating leases.
Thank you. Second question through the chair. I've heard reference that all leases will be treated like capital leases in the future. Can you expand on what this will mean for the county?
Through the chair, as Megan mentioned earlier, there's more GASB pronouncements coming down the pike, and GASB 87 is one of them. All leases will be considered capital leases. Generally speaking, this means that our balance sheet will show a lease as an asset and a liability for the future payment obligation, while our income statement will show annual amortization expense of the leasing liability. This requirement is not does not go into effect until reporting periods beginning December 15th, 2019. So it will not appear this way on our financial statements until the 2020 CAFR.
Thank you. Last question. Would it be possible to receive a list of all, I'm sorry, through the chair. I was going to do, would it be possible to receive a list of all the leases included on this page through the chair?
Through the chair, yes, we can provide that to you.
Thank you. That's it.
Legislator Conley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, through you to the administration, on page 68, it says that the county...
Could you move your microphone up just a little bit?
Thank you. On page 68, it says that the county made a payment of $18 million in February of 2018 to pay down a portion of the outstanding elective deferral amounts, and I was wondering if you could tell us what that means for future interest.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sure we are all aware that the county has amortized a portion of its annual pension bill since 2010. Those amortizations each year have to be repaid to New York State pension system over the course of 10 or 12 years, depending on which specific program we took advantage of. The state comptroller charges us based on not a complicated formula, but a more than simple formula to calculate interest on those amortizations. So we pay, it's a little different from year to year, but in general we pay about 3.25% to 3.5% interest on the prior amounts amortized. In paying down our prior year amortizations, $18 million. If you look forward in time, I think we noted earlier in our transmittal letter that saved about $2.3 million in future interest costs, probably over the next 6 to 10 years.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, through you, on the bottom of page 72, it states that there's a discount rate for pension liability at 7%. And I was wondering if this discount rate is across the board for employers participating in the ERS and PFRS plans.
Mr. Chairman, this footnote basically might be a little exaggerated, but it's basically dictated by the state of New York pension system. So the cost method, the interest rate, decrement tables, that's all mandated by the pension system. So that's a long-winded way of saying yes across the board.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, on page 74, there's a display of the summary of the county's post-employment health care benefits, and in the third paragraph, it states that the county's annual cost is determined in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Have these principles changed at all, and what is considered to be generally accepted?
So, through the chair, OPEB is calculated following the guidance found in GASB Statement 45, which has remained consistent since the county first implemented that for fiscal year end 2007. Accounting principles require us to report in today's dollars the fair value of future retiree health insurance costs. Recently, GASB 75 was issued, which will supersede GASB 45. We are currently in the process of evaluating the impact of that on Monroe County as it will be implemented for fiscal year end 2018.
Mr. Chairman, what do we expect to see differently for the following years with the establishment of the new retiree HRA plan?
Through the chair, no change specific to OPEB, as this was already factored into the calculations that were included in the 2017 financial report. Our annual cost of retiree health insurance will, however, decrease because the annual $600 being provided to retirees and spouses is less expensive than what we were charged for the Medicare Advantage plans.
Thank you. At the bottom of page 74, it shows that there's a 100.21%, and I was wondering, how is it possible that the percentage of the annual cost contributed exceeded 100%?
Through the chair.
Through the chair, thank you.
Through the chair, the contributions made were actual medical and dental expenses that the county paid on behalf of retirees and their spouses. The actuarial estimate is mathematically derived, so it's very close to the actual cost.
Thank you. And through the chair, in 2017, why was there such a large increase in the percentage of cost contributed but a decrease in the annual OPEB cost?
Through the chair, the OPEB costs were significantly lower in 2017 due to several contract settlements. This resulted in a larger percentage of costs contributed by the county.
Legislator Ansella.
Through the chair, on page 75, shows that the measurement date that was used was December 31st, 2017. And last year's AFR used the measurement date January 1st, 2015. Why was that?
Through the chair, an actuarial valuation is only required to be performed at least every 2 years. We chose the latter measurement date because of the recent union contract settlements.
Okay, thank you. On page...
Through the chair.
Through the chair, page 76 provides a summary of interfund activity. What's considered special revenue for interfund payables and receivables?
Through the chair, the title special revenue refers to the fund type. It's not a description of the items themselves. A special revenue fund is a governmental fund type used to account for the proceeds of specific revenue sources that are legally restricted to expenditures for specified purposes. So a list of all the special revenue funds can be found on page 5 and 6 of the CAFR.
Okay, thank you. And through the chair, on page 77, it states, transfers between fund types for items which would not be reported at fund level are not displayed below. Can you expand on this statement and define fund level?
Through the chair. So you're getting into more complicated stuff here. Governmental funds are accounted for on a modified accrual accounting basis. And that uses a current financial resources measurement focus. As such, certain items like capital assets and long-term debt are not reported at fund level. Proprietary funds do use an accrual basis of accounting with an economic resources measurement focus. Those statements include the above-mentioned items. So proprietary funds do include the debt and the assets. When moving items between those two types of funds, an out-of-balance situation occurs at fund level. So an example of that would be moving long-term debt. This would be reported in the fund financial statements for the proprietary funds, but not for the governmental funds. When transferring, only the fund who had that item on their fund financial statements would be able to show that. In order for the chart in 14B to balance, only transactions with both sides appearing at fund level were displayed. Items that resulted in out of balance at the fund level were noted in the description.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I just want to tag on to that because that Jennifer mentioned two very specific confusing items. The governmental funds use the current financial resources measurement focus, whereas proprietary funds use the economic resource measurement focus. That's very different, Mr. Chairman. Current financial resources, really, we're only looking a year out into the future. So if we have $1 in our pocket, are we going to spend that dollar in the coming year? That's very different, Mr. Chairman, from economic resource. When you buy a fixed asset, the county office building, it has a depreciable life of 40 years. It's not lost on me that it's been here for 200. But, we're going to derive value from this building, for decades to come. So that's an economic resource. Economic resources are full accrual accounting and will be reflected at the government-wide level, whereas the current financial resources, it's modified accrual. It's not cash basis, okay, but it's modified accrual. We only look a year out into the future, so that's a major difference.
Okay, thank you. Legislator Marionetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, just briefly, question for the administration through the chair, and it deals with on page 78, the summary of the county's risk management fund. It talks about the county's decision to self-insure medical claims. I don't know if it's possible, but are you able to give us an idea of what impact that decision may have had on finances?
Mr. Chairman, part of the county, I do have experience in the healthcare finance. We self-insured in 2014. It's now 2018. That, believe it or not, is not a long time to establish a track record. But I will tell you, in the few years since we've self-insured, the cost of our medical expense has grown each year, probably in that 6, 7, 8% range. Folks who pay a monthly health insurance premium to MVP or to Excelis, they're seeing annual cost growth in their medical premiums anywhere from, say, 12, 14, 16, even 18%. So at least for the past several years, clearly we've reaped some financial benefit by self-insuring.
Thank you. Through the chair, also on page 78, it talks about the county's evaluation of potential pollution remediation obligations, and it mentions other sites that may be contamination sites. Are we able to get a list of those sites that may have been identified by the DEC?
Through the chair, yeah, we can work with real property and the law department and DES to produce a list for you.
Thank you. Lastly, through you, Mr. Chair, switching to page 82, where it just talks about the government-wide fund. To the administration, can I just get a better understanding of what's included in that fund?
So government-wide isn't really a fund. Through the chair, sorry. Government-wide isn't an actual fund. It's a presentation in the financial statement, and it refers to the county as a whole. And we use it. It's used. I'm sorry. We use it accrual basis of accounting with an economic resources measurement focus. So this has no effect on proprietary funds, as we already talked about. They're reported on accrual basis. For the governmental funds, the government-wide statement incorporates the items that were not included at fund level, again, like capital assets and long-term debt.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, that's all I have.
Legislator Brown.
Thank you so much. Very kind. Through the chair to actually Megan Anderson, if I may, question back to the letter we were presented with. You mentioned the significant audit findings under the section of estimates that you looked at the New York State process for their assumptions in making up what we have to work with. And when you looked at it, did you determine that the state's assumptions were essentially reasonable or not?
Through the chair, this one's a little tricky because it's dictated by the state. The best I can say is we looked at it for reasonableness and disclosed the sensitivity of those assumptions to you in the footnote disclosures to show you what 1% change could do to that number. But it is dictated by the state through the actuarial report.
So through the chair, essentially you're saying you made no opinion as to whether or not these were reasonable or not reasonable assumptions made by the state.
Through the chair, we determined, given those inputs and given the disclosures on the sensitivity of it, it was reasonable to disclose it that way.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. Through the chair to the administration this time, a request was made for a list of contaminated sites by the majority side. I would appreciate it that you work with DEC to put together that list. You would provide that list to both caucuses. Is that possible through the chair?
Through the chair, absolutely. We typically, when information is requested by legislators from either side, and we bring that to the full ledge in our response packet, it's made available to everybody. We'll
Great.
do the same here.
Thank you.
Okay. Legislator Cayley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the administration, while we're not a public authority, could you give me an indication as to the cycle of the auditing firms that we've used in the last 5 years for this particular audit?
Mr. Chairman, Bonadillo and Company took over the countywide audit for fiscal year 2014. Monroe County had utilized KPMG, I want to say for at least 10 years prior to that, but I'm not sure if it was longer than 10 years.
Thank you. And then through the chair to the administration, is it currently, let me see, how is the contract awarded for this audit?
Mr. Chairman, Monroe County Finance works with the President of the Legislature to issue and review responses to requests for proposals. We go through that RFP process every 5 years.
Thank you. And then, if my math is correct, through the chair, we'll be coming up for an RFP in the next fiscal year?
That's right, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And then through the chair to the administration, on these particular audits, does Bonadillo assign a different auditor per year or for what length of time? 2 years, the same auditor? 3, 4?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to respond later, but I'm reasonably certain audit partners switch out every 4 to 5 years. We can retain the same firm like KPMG or Bonadillo for more than 5 years, but the audit partner would rotate out.
Thank you. And then through the administration, through the chair to the administration, sorry, I keep giving you a raise here. Since I don't have it quite, this is more of an observation than anything else, that basically these audit level letters and audits in their reports are signed Bonadillo and so. And my question is always, is the individual somewhere within the document, is the individual auditor that's responsible for the 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 years or what have you, is that signature in there, or is this just a signature via Bonadillo?
Through the chair, the firm stands behind the opinion as a whole, and we are peer reviewed as required every 3 years.
Thank you. You answered the question. Through the chair, my opinion on this is always, when you're trying to follow a firm that does audits for a 5-year period or what have you, that getting a signature of the firm doesn't allow the common person to know, if they know enough to look for whether or not there's an individual auditor that's been doing it longer, perhaps, than recommended. I'm not casting aspersions whatsoever, but I personally would like to see the names of the auditors as they happen during the year. To me, it's just a bit more transparent. But again, it's not a negative opinion on what's been presented today. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I just may, we are more than happy to share who the audit partners are assigned to Monroe County or any component unit you will find in our financial statements. But to be clear, Ms. Anderson responded that Bonadillo and Company LLP is peer reviewed every 3 years. Mm-hmm. It is a requirement of peer review and a standard within the AICPA that audit partners are rotated out every 5 years. But we are more than happy to share who those partners are. If I just may, one more, Mr. Chairman, just to be clear, these are our financial statements. It is not by coincidence that you see Cheryl D'Onofrio, Robert Franklin, and Jennifer Cesario on the front cover. To be frank, we are the authors. We are one of probably a handful of counties that produce their own financial statements.
Legislator Felder.
through you, Mr. Chair, to the administration, is that a common practice for the counties to produce their own financial statements?
Mr. Chairman, I can't speak for counties throughout the United States, but within the state of New York, as I said, there's only a handful of counties that actually produce their own financial statements. When I came from out there, Mr. Chairman, I drafted the financial statements for each county I worked for, or for each corporation I worked for.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Okay. At this time, I'd like to thank Mrs. Anderson for Ms. Anderson for coming this evening, and for the committee for all the excellent questions that you asked. And at this time, we're going to move on to new business.
Approval of the minutes first.
Okay. All right. Madam Clerk.
Referral 18-0227.
Moved by Legislator Hebert, seconded by Legislator Rockow. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0228.
Moved by Legislator Rockow, seconded by Legislator Ansello. Legislator Brough.
Thank you. I have a couple questions here regarding the location of where the funds go. I realize that for grants we receive, a certain percentage of it goes to what I always like to think of as overhead. It goes to the county for administering the funds. And in this case, for the funds going to the DA's office, it's about $93,000 of it is going elsewhere. But the funds going to the public defender's office, the amount going elsewhere is about $64,000 or so. And the reason I'm asking about this is because for the DA's office, the percentage, which is what kind of counts, is about 23.5%, but for the public defender's office, 25%. I was wondering why the discrepancy between the amounts of funds diverted for overhead, and that's just my phrase for the funds.
Minutes.
Through the chair, I believe that what you refer to as overhead may be funds that are allocated to the next fiscal year. This is a mid-year grant. It follows the state fiscal year of April 1st through March 31st. So I believe a portion of the funding that we would receive would be applied to this fiscal year, and the remaining percentage would be applied to the next fiscal budget.
Thank you. Will we be able to determine if that's in fact the case before the full ledge meeting through the chair?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. We're probably confusing the question, and therefore we're going to probably confuse the answer, so feel free to ask a clarifying question. The Public Defender's Office had $64,800 already included in their adopted budget for 2018.
Okay.
This particular award of $259,200, we're only amending the budget by $194,000 and change to get us to the $259,200 allocated to the public defender.
Okay, so through the chair of the administration, the public defender's office in this case was anticipating earlier 64,000 plus change, and now they actually have picked up that and another 194,000, correct, through the chair?
That is kind of correct, Mr. Chairman. It's not so much that the Public Defender's Office only anticipated 64 grand. They structure their budget in such a way to accomplish whatever period of time they need to, knowing that this grant is coming in mid-year. So we just amend the budget by an amount to balance out the difference between the original adoption and the total grant award.
Thank you, that makes sense.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0229.
Moved by legislator Ansello, seconded by legislator Connolly. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0230.
Moved by legislator Connolly, seconded by legislator Marionetti. Legislator Barat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the administration, I was sitting on the Public Safety Committee yesterday, and a discussion went on about the backlogs, and numbers were given out, and I'm going to just go through them briefly. The drugs case was 3,200, DNA was 629, and there was a trace elements case, and the number I wrote down was 72. Is that correct, or is that incorrect? The case backlog.
Through the chair, John Clark from the Crime Lab. It is the trace evidence section.
Yes.
And 72 is correct.
That is correct. Okay. Thank you very much. I just thought I made a typo, but thank you.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? All right. Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0231.
Moved by legislator Marionetti, seconded by legislator Hebert. Legislator Barat.
Thank you very much. Through the chair of the administration, again, at the public safety meeting, there was a kind of an extensive discussion about what all Gene Trias does in this role. And my question has to do with, does the grant itself require the delivery of any performance metrics through the chair?
Through the chair, she does, Jenny Verhagen from Public Safety, she does have to submit a plan of what, types of events she will do and what she projects she will do as far as numbers of programs, numbers of participants, numbers of handouts.
Okay.
And then she reports quarterly on those.
Thank you very much.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0232.
Moved by legislator Hebert, seconded by legislator Rockow. Legislator Barat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the administration, the referral states that for the approximately 442 participants, Delphi will also, quote, obtain temporary housing as needed. How often does that occur through the chair?
Through the chair, could you please repeat the last portion of your question?
Sure. Through the chair, Delphi is supposed to provide or obtain, anyhow, temporary housing for participants as needed. That's the last sentence in the third paragraph. And I'm just curious as how often is that required or necessary to obtain temporary housing for participants?
Through the chair, I can provide you that information in the near future.
Okay. I look forward to that. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any further? Legislator Cayley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To you, to the administration. Of the 442, am I on the right one? I thought so. Of the parolees that go through Delphi, do any of them come through Delphi without any identification? And if so, is Delphi responsible for handling that for the parolees?
Through the chair, as part of their work with these clients. Getting an ID is a precursor to employment and many other opportunities to improve the situation for the clients they're working with. So I can tell you, I've personally been involved in discussions where that is a point of emphasis, trying to assist people in getting identification.
Thank you. Through the chair, I guess I don't, when you say point of emphasis, they either help them get ID or they don't.
Through the chair, yes, they do help them.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0233.
Moved by legislator Rockow, seconded by legislator Ansello. Is there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please legislator Cayley.
Thank you. I was here yesterday for this through the chair, this committee, but I was not paying attention. So if you get just a couple questions answered for me here. Will, in fact, through the chair, this be, will the installation be completed by the October 2018 deadline?
Through the chair, the major part of the installation will be done by the deadline. However, there may be things after the date that the public or elected officials from Albany will not care about, but our security team will care. So we could refer to it as a punch list. There will be extra things after the date, but for all relative purposes, it'll be up and functional by the deadline.
Thank you. And do you expect the overtime needed to exceed 3 to 6 months?
Through the chair, the price is what it is. IK Systems has taken on the responsibility to get the job done, and overtime is not an issue that we have to address as the airport.
I'm sorry, through the chair, I asked that question wrong. I got a good answer, but I asked it incorrectly. Will the additional amenities that's even the wrong word for it as well, will the additional work that needs to be completed on this past 2018 October, will that take a significant amount of time to do?
Through the chair, we're not expecting it to take a significant amount of time. There may be tweaking that we request be done, but we're not expecting this to go into 2019 by any means, and probably not much past the October 31st deadline.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0234.
Moved by legislator Ansello, seconded by legislator Connolly. Is there any discussion? Legislator Cayley.
For you to the administration. Recently heard something that was a little bit disturbing to me, but I'd like it verified since we are going into an agreement with resource recovery with Cascades. Will we be, or are we currently, do we currently have a buyer for glass?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, this contract is for solid waste management services, a transfer hall of municipal solid waste brought to the resource recovery facility. Their Cascades will also have the ability to manage industrial, commercial, and institutional recyclable materials, primarily fiber. There'll be no glass going through this facility.
Thank you. But while you're here, could I ask through the chair, do we currently have the ability to recycle glass, or is it being just disposed of in our sites?
Through the chair, glass presently collected at the curbside is used for a beneficial use at the landfill for construction purposes as well as for daily cover.
Thank you. So if I understand you through the chair, we are reusing it ourselves versus buying a product.
Through the chairman, that is correct.
Thank you. Makes me feel a little better through the chair.
Is there any further discussion? Legislator Felder?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Could you explain, when you say the glass is used for construction purposes, I'm just a little confused. I'm not being funny, I'm serious.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, no, it's a very good question. As part of the landfill construction, Waste Management needs material for pipe bedding, for road bases, also for alternative daily cover. And if the glass wasn't provided, they would have to purchase virgin materials, sand or aggregate or other materials that would have to be purchased and hauled in. So we've identified glass as material that could be used for those purposes. It's repurposed, if you will, and avoids buying virgin material. There are no outlets for the glass here with there haven't been in several years now, probably about 10 years. There have not been outlets for glass from recycling centers.
Thank you.
Okay.
Through the chair, if I may, I extend an offer to both caucuses if at any time they would like to sit down with the administration and get an update as to what the recycling practices are. It is a market that shifts on year to year, sometimes more frequent basis. For instance, the price of oil drives whether or not it is more economically viable to manufacture virgin plastic than perhaps recycle it, and that sort of changes the market with regards to the value of our recyclables. So anytime that either caucus would like us to come in and sit down and talk about that, please just ask.
Thank you. Okay. All right. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0235.
Moved by Legislator Connolly, seconded by Legislator Marionetti. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0237.
Moved by Legislator Marionetti, seconded by Legislator Hebert. Legislator Barat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the administration, was eminent domain utilized in this process?
Through the chair, it has not been used.
Thank you. And through the chair to the administration, has the environmental assessment been completed yet, or is it still pending?
Through the chair, it's still pending.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0238.
Moved by Legislator Hebert, seconded by Legislator Rockow. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0239.
Moved by Legislator Rockow, seconded by Legislator Ansello. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0240.
Moved by Legislator Ansello, seconded by Legislator Connolly. Legislator Barat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the administration, I noticed in the second paragraph it describes what the award will be used for. And when in the Human Services Committee meeting it was discussed what the program was going to be used for, it mentioned varied program improvements such as technology, building supplies, and things along those lines. And my question is, through the chairs, what is exactly going to be utilized and purchased or paid for to prevent, quote, fraud, waste, and abuse, which is listed in the second paragraph, through the chair?
Through the chair. We actually have a very robust plan for fraud, waste, and abuse. We were informed by New York State that we were the only county to solicit such a proposal, and we will be having what we have affectionately named a Snapmobile, which will have surveillance and be able to target particularly food trucks in our county that have been preying on vulnerable residents, and there has been some significant abuse cases over the past year. So we will have this new tool to try to combat some of that.
Thank you. Through the chair to the administration, when you describe abuse by food trucks, can you give me an idea of what you're talking about? I mean, substandard foods, overpricing, what are we talking about here through the chair?
Through the chair, I'm not sure how much detail you need regarding food trucks. Food trucks have been popping up in our county for the past couple of years, where they operate on a credit system. They take an individual's benefit card information, essentially credit them food, and later, when the person has the benefits available, redeem them. We have had several instances where recipients indicate that they did not authorize or did not receive the actual food that later the food truck redeemed from their benefits. And so we have quite a few cases where we are doing investigations into that, trying to ascertain what really happened and retrieve the benefits from the food truck operator if they were indeed removed in error.
Okay. So through the chair of the administration, I understand that allows me to understand the concern. That makes sense. My question then is, you mentioned that the New York State noted that we're the only county to solicit such a program, and that's neither good nor bad. It's just what it is. But my question is, when we just made the decision to include that in our solicitation, what was that decision based upon? Anecdotal evidence such as you described now, or was a study performed to indicate that there's significant losses occurring, or what was the basis of deciding to initiate this surveillance program, this tracking program, or this attempt to look at food trucks and other things? Through the chair.
Through the chair, surely some anecdotal evidence was utilized. We have a long-standing fraud and abuse program. If you're aware, we had recently a $1 million fraud and abuse case recently, and our Special Investigations Unit operations manager was very interested in pursuing that. They are very involved throughout the state in welfare fraud and abuse, in addition to SNAP specifically, and this decision to include the SNAP mobile in our proposal came from some of the work that he's been doing both locally and again work throughout the state with other counties as well.
Thank you. And through the chair of the administration, of the $736,000, about how much is being devoted towards combating fraud, waste, and abuse, so the SNAP mobile and other related expenses?
The fraud, the SNAP, through the chair, the SNAP mobile, as we're affectionately calling it, is the only fraud and abuse category that we included in our plan, and we estimate that that will be about $50,000.
Thank you. And then finally, through the chair to the administration, am I correct to assume the phrase improvements in program integrity is along these same lines? When you mentioned program integrity, is about fraud prevention, or is it something else?
Through the chair, no, it's not about fraud. It is about SNAP certification. So the state had indicated just 4 categories that you could allocate this money towards, and like I indicated, the SNAP mobile is the only one related to fraud and abuse. All of the other categories that we are spending are related to bonus certification, with a very small leftover amount allocated to other, which we intend to use for overtime.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0241.
Moved by legislator Connolly and seconded by legislator Marionetti. Legislator Barat.
Thank you. Through the chair of the administration, I was looking at the purchase of services information forms attached to the referral, and on one of them is talking about the performance indicators in service area 1, and it talks about success rates. They're anticipating and project 90% every year. But the previous actual for last year, for the 2017 through 3/31/2018, it was 98% success rate. And my question is that just an outlier, or is that something that we hope to see again, or we just think that it could be anything, we just say 90% for that particular measure? Through the chair.
Through the chair. So this particular program, we just switched over to a new statewide client database, so it was a little bit of a guessing game for that first year. But now that they have all the bugs out of the statewide system, we should be able to have better projections in the future.
Okay, so through the chair of the administration, I would hope so, except that the next year projection is still 90%, just as it was for the previous year and the current year, through the chair. It hasn't changed.
So through the chair, that particular indicator of success is a customer satisfaction that they use when they do follow-up calls to find out if the individual's needs were met.
Mm-hmm.
And just through the nature of people, sometimes they feel their needs were met, sometimes they, because the folks that we're serving may forget why they called. So we can try to do as much as we can to project, but unfortunately it's a little bit hard of a measurement to accurately project.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll revisit this in a couple years' time, then we'll see how it goes. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0242.
Moved by legislator Marionetti and seconded by legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion? Legislator Cayley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the administration. Most of the questions were answered in committee on this one. And if I remember correctly, that this program is available to all the middle school students in the county. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that's correct, across all of New York State, as a matter of fact, including this county.
Okay, thank you. And then through the administration, through the chair to the administration, how is the funding distributed simply through number of students in any particular school?
Through the chair, no, there's not a calculation of numbers that's tied to the exact money. The extra funding was based on what would be required to add the new components to the education and training.
Bless you. So thank you. So really you can't answer at this point what the distribution model is in terms of the funding, even if it's added on to the existing program?
Through the chair, you may find some notes in there that talk about how this is structured and through what process. And it's really about staff time and technical expertise rather than increasing how many students are reached with this.
Thank you. I have other questions, but I'm just going to think about it and save them to the legislative meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0243.
Moved by legislator Hebert, seconded by legislator Rockow. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0244.
Moved by legislator Rockow, seconded by legislator Ansello. Legislator Barat.
Mr. Chair, through you to the administration, the referral refers to the expectation that there will be increases in 2018, it says greatly. What type of increase is actually expected or anticipated?
Through the chair, could you restate the question?
Sure. The referral talks about the volume of retiree health reimbursement accounts increasing, quote, greatly in 2018 and beyond. What sort of increase are we thinking about here? Through the chair.
Through the chair, in 2018, the number of accounts increased by 1,800, and then each month as retirees reach Medicare eligibility, the number goes up. I think it's about 40 per month, to infinity.
Thank you. Through the chair to the administration, so prior to 2018, what sort of rate of increase did we see between 2011 and 2017? Through the chair, if any.
Essentially, it was flat.
It was flat. Okay, thank you. And then through the chair of the administration, I know that we have a change in the medical benefits for more than a year now. How has the county handled HRAs on behalf of the retirees up till now? Through the chair.
Through the chair, I'm sorry, could you clarify the question?
Sure. About a little over a year ago, we went to a new medical benefit system, and I was wondering how the county's been handling the HRAs on behalf of the retirees in this past year and a half or so, year and a bit.
Through the chair, the HRAs have been highly successful in processing fine. We're just reaching the point in the year where we have crossed over our authorization. And so in order to continue to pay for the service, we need to come back to the legislature for a higher authorization level.
Okay. And so through the chair of the administration, so currently right now, well, a month ago, we're at about 1,800, correct?
1,800 is
accounts.
Yeah, through the chair, 1,800 was the delta. That was the marginal increase.
Oh, I'm sorry. So my apologies. So what is the current number of HRAs that we actually now have through the chair?
Through the chair, I would have to get back to you on that.
Okay. That'd be fine. Just for a ballpark, are we talking like, double that number or a lot more than that? I mean, through the chair.
Well, the number is listed in the county budget, so anything I say you can verify it there, but off the top of my head, I'd probably say that maybe there's like 350.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 18-0245.
Moved by Legislator Ansello and seconded by Legislator Connolly. Legislator Kelly.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, through you to the administration, is this the first contract with this particular company?
Through the chair, yes.
Thank you. And then through the administration, is this the tired? Through the chair, is this the only company that was considered this year?
Through the chair, no. An RFP was conducted. 2 firms responded. This firm was rated highest.
Thank you. And then, through the chair, may I ask the name of the other company and whether or not we've worked with them before?
Through the chair, the other company was Aon Hewitt, and no, we have not worked with them.
Thank you. And then through the chair to the administration, what was the last company that we worked with before this contract?
Through the chair, we worked with, I don't know the correct technical name, but she was a consultant who was a company of one, Dr. Nancy Abrams, who had held the contract since 1993.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. All right. Are there any other matters to come before this committee? Seeing none. The August 28th, 2018 meeting of the Ways and Means Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting of the Ways and Means Committee will be held on Tuesday, September 18th, 2018, at 6 p.m.